Welcome back now to our closing session. We had 3 days full of interesting panels, full of inspiring discussions about the aviation today and the aviation tomorrow.
And I think there were sort of 3 overruling themes. Of course, recovery, C19 in everybody's head. Second question is, of course, how do we reduce CO2 in aviation? And it seems to be a clear commitment that we're going to have a zero CO2 emission by 2050. And maybe as a third issue, of course, digitization as a part of the solution in all fields. And with us now is Alpha and Omega, having opened the Congress 3 days ago in very fast movement, let's say a last minute. We have the German Aerospace Coordinator, Thomas Jarzembek, with us. I cannot believe I made that record right now. I've spoken your name so many times properly. So it's wonderful that you're with us here live and again, in these environments which are not digital at all, we have a digital speech. Thank you so much.
So it's a huge pleasure for me to be here today, also not blacked out, but with picture and to see you all alive. Some of you in this room here, most of you out there on the TV screens or on your iPads or whatever. And so let me first say hello to Professor Henke, Mr. Thum, Mr. Ney, Mr. Fumero, and Ms. Simok, and Mr. Bobinger. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for inviting me to wrap up the 8th European Aeronautics Days on behalf of the German EU presidency. The Aero Days traditionally are the leading event of the European Commission in the field of aviation. And the 8 Aero Days, remarkably and unique, are this in more than one way. First, Aero Days to be organized as tandem Aero Days. 1920 under the respective presidencies of Romania and Germany. And it's a new and innovative approach that shows the close and fruitful cooperation between a founding member of the EU and a country belonging to the new club of the EU 13. Remember well the very impressive event last year in Bucharest in May. Beautiful setting in the Palace of Parliament, almost 1,000 participants, exhibition booths showing new technologies, also from our DLR. And thanks to Mr. Ney and our Romanian friends. Discussions in Bucharest about how to handle the seeming unlimited growth of global air travel, while at the same time striving for more environmentally friendly aviation modes. Completely different picture 1.5 years later here today in Berlin. Air traffic at record low of about 10% what we used to have, and an industry facing biggest crisis over decades. Nevertheless, a similar number of registrations, but virtual event with remote participation from all over the world. Organized different, but equally well by the teams of BDLI and DLR. And thank you, Mr. Thum and Professor Henke, for doing all this. And the first part, the Berlin Aviation Summit, last Tuesday was not only a starting point for the Aero Days, but a truly international event on its own right. High-ranking speakers from all top companies. Also huge interest from emerging aerospace nations like China. Showcasing that all differences put aside, we are one global aerospace community. Discussions in Berlin about how to revitalize aviation in the COVID-19 crisis are going on. For Europe, aviation is a globally competitive and successfully key industry, much needed in the future, and I want to stress that. Governments taken measures worth billions of euros to help the core of the industry and its suppliers through the imminent crisis. We have to reopen connections and restore trust in the air travel. When airlines recover, industry will as well. But there won't be any kind of return to business as usual. The crisis also has a chance, and a chance to pursue the goal of climate neutral aviation and zero emission flight even more vigorous. As Mr. Winkler, as Vice President of the BDLI, has put in his press briefing for the Berlin Aviation Summit, only a sustainable aviation industry will keep the license to grow. And I only can stress that, and the insight that we take from these Tandem Aero Days is that R&D is key. And the continued R&D is indispensable, and there is no one-size-fits-all solution. We have to use all means to follow the goal of decarbonization of aviation. These include electric and hybrid electric flight, hydrogen solutions, sustainable aviation fuels, and the necessary infrastructure, as well as more climate-friendly air traffic management. And I think especially the last point is an important one, as I believe we focus very much on new fuels and new engines. But in the end, as I learned from Professor Henke, there are low-hanging fruits in improving the air traffic management and the routes that planes are going, especially when they go intercontinental. And so we want to push this also for the future, for the ending year for the next year. And it's important by all our improvements when it comes to the CO2 footprint that those topics stay valid. And one of these is to be more quiet, to have more silent airplanes, and to provide 100% safety. And we support this as the German government with the funding from the hydrogen strategy of around 7 billion euros. We have increased funding for hybrid electric engines under German aviation research program LUFO. We have increased institutional funding for the German Aerospace Center DLR to make up for the missing industry contributions during the crisis. And we have this innovation premium for aviation of around 1 billion euros. And national efforts are not enough. So I call up the European Commission to set up an attractive and competitive R&D partnership on clean aviation. And Mr. Fumero, the additional 4 billion euros for Horizon Europe just agreed upon with Parliament should be used in a targeted way to support European key industries and technologies. Stakeholders from airlines, industry and suppliers, as well as research institutions, academia, finance and politics must work together towards zero-emission aircraft. And we believe it's possible to achieve that in the next decade. A goal worth putting all efforts in. Technology spillover effects for other sectors of economy are guaranteed. And this is my summary of the Tandem Aero Days 19 to 20. Thank you for watching and stay healthy. And I hope to see you all in person at the next Berlin Aviation Summit at the ILA Berlin Air Show 2022.
Thank you so much, Thomas Jarzenbeck. Thanks to the German government for its hospitality. And even though many participants were with us, most of them virtual, I think everybody felt the hospitality of the German government, which was planned to be much more than virtual. We have you here on the stage again in a minute, and we are very much looking forward to that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. And Thomas Jarzenbeck has already pointed out that it's a tandem event. So he's taken us from Bucharest to Berlin, and we're now going back to Bucharest simply because we have Professor Katalin Ney on the call. And he is actually the organizer of the 2019 part of the Tandem Days. So it must be quite a relief to sort of watch it, but not sort of have the hat on to be responsible for everything, apart, of course, from your successful opening session 2 days ago.
Okay, thank you, Connie. First of all, most of the things that I actually wanted to say have been initiated by Thomas, who earlier mentioned the way we set it up from the beginning. We wanted to have a first edition in Bucharest to be considered a little bit related to upstream research, the way to emphasize that there is a lot of upstream research going on, also in the central part of Europe, but also on eastern part of Europe. And that gave us the possibility, so to speak, to look to more low TRL up to medium TRL achievements at that time. We wanted to have a second edition in Berlin. We were not anticipating the current crisis, but the idea was to have high TRL exhibition, showing how industry is ready to take off with respect to new achievements that we were planning under the European Framework Program. And basically what we did was to stick to the plan. We went to this journey together. By the way, almost everyone in this panel were present in Bucharest event, as we are now virtually present in this event organized in Berlin. And what we did basically was, so to speak, to move to this high TRL presentation, how industry is ready to commit with respect to the new achievements. On the other hand, yes, of course, we were hit by the COVID crisis, but that was not the main problem in the aviation sector. This will pass. Our problem is still carbon neutral aviation. So all the efforts, all the research activities, all the resources from this perspective are orientated towards achieving this goal, carbon neutral aviation. We have the resources, as we have seen, we have the capabilities, so we are very confident after this event that what we need is already here. So we have to start working in order to deliver. And on top of this, by the way, with respect to how the air traffic system in the future will look like, we are very confident. Just because we also heard about two major important things, in my opinion. One is urban air mobility, huge challenge for the aviation sector, by the way. And the other one, most certainly very linked to more political and competitiveness. Not to forget supersonic flight. So we all had the opportunities during these days to debate about these topics. So I'm once again very confident in the future of aviation, as already expressed by the AREA studies with respect to the future of aviation, and also with respect to the infrastructures. And by the way, Rolf is there. So Rolf, as DLR representative to this program, obviously will try probably to say that, yes, we have the infrastructure to support industry to deliver. Last but not least, we started this event under the slogan, changes now, which in my opinion already started. So yes, changes in aviation sector started towards global carbon neutral aviation.
Well, thank you very much, Professor Ney, a man with wings on his heart and his heart beats for aviation. Thank you very much for having been with us. And as we are talking about tandem aero days, we have to have the other part of the tandem. And the nice thing is Professor Henke has been up here on this stage so many times that it's a wonderful welcome back. Now, if you want to look at the future, usually you better know your past. That way you pave the way into the future better. And I know that you will do that in your closing remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, Professor Rolf Henke, Representative Aviation of the Executive Board of DLR, German Aerospace Center. Now that was the full title.
Thank you very much, Connie. Yeah. So, yes, you're perfectly right. I mean, you have to look to the past before you look into the future. European Aeronautic Days as a brand started almost 30 years ago, 1991 in Brussels. At that time, we talked about aeronautics as part of the advanced material research, interestingly enough. Followed the second and the third event, 93 in Naples and 97 in Toulouse. During the fourth Aeronautic Days, 2001 in Hamburg, the first European vision paper on aeronautics has been released, the famous Vision 2020. The next event was 2006 in Vienna, and the sixth Aeronautics Days, 2011 in Madrid, gave the floor for the present vision document, Flypast 2050. After the Aero Days in London, 2015, now we are at the 8th Aero Days, the famous tandem Aero Days we heard about enough, I think, in Bucharest and Berlin. So with a sequence of about 5 years, I would expect, now look into the future, would expect the next Aero Days maybe 2021, 25, somewhere northeast of Europe, we will see. And at that time, probably a couple of things we discussed these couple of the last 3 days should be a bit clearer, like propulsion energy, configurations, overall mobility. And then, maybe not finally, but maybe in 10 years' time, that for the 10th European Aeronautic Days 2030, for this anniversary, maybe in Brussels, following what we heard by industry the last days, I would expect the launch of a new zero-emission aircraft with more than 100 passengers. Sustainable aviation fuels should be available. Smaller electric vehicles will be around us, including autonomous air taxis. And now if somebody finds my notes for this closing speech for today, in this 10 years' time, he may either laugh or not. And this depends on us. The future is lying in front of us, and we are to cite from John F. Kennedy today. I will go 2,000 years back to Seneca. He said, per aspera ad astra, through difficulties to the stars. And really, this is up to us. It's difficult, but it's reachable. So I would like to thank all those who participated, all those who listened, but please allow me, without a very long list, but especially thank the German Federal Ministry, Thomas Jarzombeck here in the room, but also, of course, the ministry as such, and the European Commission. They supported the Aeronautic Days. As I said, we are the 8th already, so a couple of Aeronautic Days have been supported. I hope they will support in the future. So please stand firm to aviation in general, and to the Aeronautic Days in particular. Go on with your support, it's worth it. For high-tech from Europe, for sustainable air mobility, for peaceful globalization, and last but not least, for the Green Deal. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Rolf Henke. Thank you. Professor Rolf Henke is not only the representative of DLR here, he also worked as a session chair and had to do hard work. So at this time, maybe it's time to say thank you to all session chairs. You did a marvelous job. We had many inspiring discussions in all these panels. And now it's time for the closing remarks from the Managing Director of the German Aerospace. Yeah, he's grabbing the micro already. Well done. German Aerospace Industries Association, BDLI. Welcome, Volker Thum.
Thank you, Uli, and welcome to all our visitors, spectators on the screen. And so many content has been said already now, and for me it's only 2 words, and the words are congratulations and thank you. Congratulations to 3 days of huge content, where in a very short time you pressed all the knowledge into our heads, and I can't remember whenever I had so many people telling me so much in such a short time and on such a quality level. So, great job done, and a big thank you, of course, also from my side to the European Commission, to the German Ministry of Economy, to the DLR, to all the teams who managed to do it, because they organized a meeting of high-level content in a short time, in a very special environment, and I'm really looking forward to seeing all of you in 2022. Thank you so much. All the best.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Mr. Thum. And ladies and gentlemen, the European Union has been mentioned many times, and this is the point at which I can hand over to somebody who is actually known as Mr. Aviation, certainly in Brussels. He is the advisor of the Air Transport Director General, and the nice thing about all the Brussels directorates is that they all have funny names. And your name is clean. I mean, you know, if that is not the right direction to go. Dr. Sebastiano Fumero, please take it away.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed. It's a great pleasure on behalf of the European Commission to make the closing remarks of this fantastic conference. I still remember quite well when almost 4 years ago, my colleagues came to my office and told me that it was time to launch a new edition of Aero Days. And I still remember how much they were shocked when I told them, okay, let's do it, but let's change it and make it more political. Then came your proposal and the amazing idea of making a tandem Aero Days, involving one of the founder countries of the European Union, Germany, and one of the newcomers from East, Romania. It has also very much appreciated your idea on embedding the 2 conferences in the program of the European presidency to give a real importance and granting to the sector the right visibility for what it does to our society. The strategic messages and the recommendation that Mr. Jasenbeck, Mr. Henke, Mr. Nae, and many others during the conference have been well received. I can reassure you that the European Commission will do its best to support the demanding transition towards a climate-neutral aviation, and at the same time strengthening the European competitiveness. Once again, congratulations to all the organizers in Bucharest and in Berlin. And if you allow me, I would like also to thank in particular a few people that have done this long journey with me and make all this happen. Thank you, Claudia. Thank you, Thomas. Thank you, Alexander. And thank you, Enzo. Finally, after this edition, you can be sure Aerodays will never be the same. It will not be anymore a pure scientific conference, but the right place to discuss where the aviation and in particular the European aviation will go. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Fumero. Your work isn't done simply because the call is out, the call for the Clean Aviation Partnership, and that's another 4 days. So I'm quite sure that, you still keep your sleeves wrapped up. And wonderful to see you back on stage. We have started in Bucharest this Tandem Aero Days, Thomas Jasenbeck, and now we're ended in Berlin, but it needs to go somewhere else. So I dare you to actually pick up this objet d'art.
Yeah, so I learned in advance. This is not from carbon done or lightweight materials. It's really massive and heavy, and so no additive manufacturing. So. In the end, I'd like to hand this over to you, Mr. Fumero, and all the best for the next year.
Wow. So, virtually, you need to take it over. I'm quite sure we will find a way to get it over to Brussels. How are you going to pick it up?
I don't know, but I will use a special cargo for doing it.
Thank you so much. And with that, please stay with us because the Aero Days are really coming to an end. And Uli, maybe one last word from you. Our work is almost done.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Jasenbeck. Thanks again to Sebastiano Fumero. Well, I think this have been 3 days of inspiration, of great discussions, of great sessions. It was great having everybody of you, at least virtual, with us. We are very much looking forward next time to meet each other, to shake hands, to have a coffee together and have a nice chat. Fingers crossed that this can happen. But nevertheless, I think this has been a great congress, and thanks you for joining us. And Connie, I think it's time to say goodbye.
Absolutely wonderful. The word is out. 2022, we see each other either digitally or in real life, in person. Till then, bye-bye.